Tracy with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Welcome to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave television network. Thank you all for joining me. I am so thankful to be here for show number 2. I just want to thank people who have watched show number 1. I so appreciate it. I got great feedback from people, and I love that. I also, of course, want to thank Bold Brave Television Network for giving me this beautiful opportunity to be here, spreading a message of healing and showing how we can achieve an end to our suffering. So some of the feedback I got, one of the beautiful things that were said to me after show number 1, I actually had somebody tell me that they embraced the concept that I talked about last week about, being your own greatest hurter, being your own greatest betrayer. And, she gave me an example how she was living that, she was making a choice not to do that to herself anymore. And she said that she had text messages from somebody that were unacceptable and abusive language and things. And she said that she decided in that moment that she would not tolerate that anymore, that she would not betray herself by allowing that anymore, and that she would take back her power. And she set a hard limit and she blocked that person. And those kind of moments are meaningful and just made my heart feel very full when she told me about that. So, this is a place a safe place to talk about our experiences, to share our experiences. And, it's a safe place to explore ways to do our own emotional healing, to look at guided healing practices, spiritual growth practices, kind of try things on, see what fits, see what we're compelled to do. And, we're all connected in sameness. And that's what my vision for this show is. So always for the purpose of encouraging deep emotional healing. So I'll be having guests on who guide healing practices, alternative healing practices, and guide spiritual growth and healing. And I'll be asking them to share their own experiences and struggle and suffering and what was meaningful and helpful to them. Those are things that I described last time on show 1 about what Talks with Tracy is meant for. I come here with purpose and intention to encourage deep emotional healing, the kind of healing that puts an end to suffering. So now last week in the first show, in part 1, I shared part 1 of my own healing journey, where I said that I had to share in the context of my struggle and suffering so that I could then share how I did my healing and how I continue to do my healing. That was part 1 in show 1. So if you haven't seen that already, I encourage you to watch it. I'd love for you to watch it. It's available on Bold Brave Television Network as a recording. So today is show 2, part 2. So we're going to start to look at the healing part. Now, before I do that, I'd like to just review some of the things patterns and beliefs and behaviors and emotions that were moving me forward in my life, clearly coloring my perception, influencing my behaviors, dictating my experience of my life that I noticed and pointed out last time in part 1. So last week in part 1, I talked about how I was just full of anxiety and fear throughout my childhood and into my adulthood. I didn't really know what that was about. I had gone through my lifetime trying to be this perfect child, perfect employee, perfect wife by other people's definitions of perfect. And I really had lost myself. I was horribly codependent in intimate relationships. I talked about that. I based my own happiness on the happiness of others. And I really was engulfed in self-sacrifice and I even based my own self-worth on how happy I made other people, which of course was a losing battle, right? Because I can only make myself happy. I can't make others happy, so I found myself failing frequently. But these were all very pervasive patterns that just drove me through my lifetime. Um, so I also noticed a pervasive pattern of needing a belief in my mind that I needed to remain unnoticed, remain in the background, stay hidden. While at the same time, I had this drive in me to do great things. So there was this awful push pull, like Tracy, we need to do great things, and then also Tracy, we must remain hidden. We must remain in the background. We can't be seen. It was a very painful push pull, and it really limited my potential and it caused suffering. So, I would do great things. I did do great things in my career, but I would always hand over credit to other people. They wouldn't take it from me necessarily. I would hand it over. Any kind of success I had, I'd hand it over to other people and say, hey, go out, talk about it. You know, do take credit if you like, whatever. Just don't make me get up in front of people and talk about it because I want to stay hidden. I want to be in the background. I even did this in my personal life, helping other people to look good through all of my effort and doing. So I had this pervasive pattern of putting all my attention, my energy, my focus outside of myself and this drive to remain unnoticed. And, I was unnoticed to even myself. It was as though I didn't matter even to myself. And all of this caused much suffering. So I also shared last week that my life experience includes countless acts of betrayal. Now, when we think of betrayal, we think of what other people have done to us, but I really put betrayal into the perspective of me being my own greatest betrayer. I had set these circumstances into motion based on my own thoughts, beliefs, behaviors. I drew these things to me and I created these situations and I betrayed myself in doing so. So I spoke in terms of me being my own greatest betrayer, my own greatest hurter in my lifetime. When people would say, Trace, what are you doing? Why are you living like this? Why are you making these choices? The people who genuinely loved me would ask me those things, I would poo-poo it away. I would be like, no, 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 everything's fine. I would rationalize, I would minimize, I would lie to myself. I'd lie to myself, I was continually compromising my integrity in that way. And my moral compass, my honesty with myself, it was in the garbage. It was awful. I was my own greatest betrayer. So, lying to myself so I didn't have to face the truth. Because what happens if I face the truth? Well, then, I either have to make a conscious choice to stay in it, or I'd have to face my hurters and change it, take action. And that was completely terrifying for me. I was not willing to go there for the longest time. So I lived like this for years until I really became broken. And then I also described last week how one day I had this moment of enlightenment where I was driving down the highway, and I was overcome with this feeling of joy and fulfillment and happiness like I'd never felt before. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not know what was happening, but it was amazing. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? I received the message from my soul. It said, it's time for you to live, Tracy. It's time for you to live your life, take your life back. And in that moment, I decided, you know what? I am going to live. I am going to make my own decisions. I am going to do relationships the way I want to do relationships. I'm going to manage my own money. I'm going to do what I want when I want to do it. I'm going to not do what I don't want to do. And this was a big deal for me because I hadn't been living that way at all. And in that blissful moment, I said, yes, I'm going to take my life back. It's time. I'm going to do this. And I was overwhelmed just with this moment. Well, now that moment, you might think it marked the next chapter in my life of enlightenment and blissful living. Well, it actually threw me into a place of taking back my power, standing up to my hurters, making these big life changes, and it was absolutely terrifying and painful. Terrifying. So, but it was all important. So now what I didn't mention last week when I was talking about my struggle and my suffering were two other things that were happening in this time of me regaining my power, taking back my power in intimate relationships. So the first was a devastating blow in my professional life, all during this time. So I had quite a bit of success in my career. I was well respected. I still am. I appreciate that. But right in the middle of all of this personal life chaos, my place of employment came under new management. And this new management, quite honestly, exhibited many of the power and control dynamics that I was already fighting against in taking back my life in other areas. And these characteristics were very similar. And in fact, it created this hostile work environment situation that was downright abusive. So this new management, they just didn't respect my professional skills, or maybe they were threatened by them. They embarked on this kind of vicious campaign to get rid of me, to push me out. Now I think about, I laugh when I think about this now because it was so ridiculous. I literally had all my job responsibilities removed from me. I was not allowed to talk to the people that I had supervised and mentored for so many years, and I was not allowed to do any work in the program I developed. I was instrumental in developing. All of that was taken away from me. And I literally, and I am not exaggerating, I was taken from my office and put in the janitor's closet. I think about this now and it's so crazy. I was put in the janitor's closet with a small desk and a big computer, and I was told I couldn't touch the computer. It was pure ridiculousness, and I laugh now, but at the time, ugh, it was humiliating, it was degrading, and it really added to my suffering around this time. I was just fighting for things in a whole new way. And you might ask, like, why did I stay there? Or, I stayed there because I was embarking on all these these big life changes. And quite honestly, when you are taking back your power and making significant change in your life, it can be expensive. So I really didn't have the ability to just quit my job and not have that income. So I stayed in this toxic, hateful work environment in my closet. And, in this way, I was compromising my integrity in a whole new way. And that compromising my integrity is super painful to me. So it created more suffering. So here I was fighting for my power in my intimate relationship. And now I was in this hostile work environment, um, feeling like my integrity was just in the toilet there too. And then one of the uh, the absolute hardest thing in my life happened in this time of my life happened. And I've actually practiced a little bit talking about this because um, I don't necessarily want to ugly cry on Bold Brave Television Network. If it happens, it happens. I'll go with it. But I'm just going to take a breath and regulate and mention this briefly because it's still very painful for me. So do you remember the three sisters that I talked about? My sisters Roberta, Martha, and Hiccups, my backbones. They were my protection. They were my brains. They were my go-to people, my everyday people. Well, one of them, my sister Roberta, passed away unexpectedly during this time. And this is me regulating emotion. This threw me into a place of grief that was completely overwhelming and added a whole new degree of being broken and brought to my knees. So I mentioned these other circumstances that happened because I will be explaining later today and in this show some things that came as a result of that. So I know that was heavy stuff, and I promised you healing today, and that was more suffering. So I didn't really give you a warning about that, but I promise you in the next segment, I am going to be moving to the healing, thankfully. All right, so now, how do you heal from this? Where does a person start? How does a person even begin to take their life back, their power back under these horrible circumstances? And how do you maintain faith and hope within all of this? That's what I'm going to be talking about in my next segment coming up as we embark on the healing part of this. So we are going to take a brief commercial break. Please take a moment for yourself. Do a little self-care out there, and I'm going to do the same. And excuse me, I'm going to do the same. And I'll meet you right back here in a couple of minutes. You're watching Bold Brave Television. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont. Join me again for my next segment.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you for joining me again. Now, as promised, we are going to move into the healing part of my story, the part 2 of my healing. So before the break, I asked the questions like, how does a person even begin to heal from this? Where does a person start? How does a person take back their life and take back their power under these circumstances? And, how do you maintain faith and hope within all of this? And I mean, how on earth does a person transform all of this? This is pretty messy. So these are all great questions, absolutely great questions. And quite honestly, I had no idea how to do it. I was a mental health therapist, yes, but when you're in the midst of your own emotion, you're not a mental health therapist, you're a human, like everybody else, joined in sameness. So I really had no idea how to do this. I just knew that I had to because I was falling apart. I was in survival mode. I was exhausted, depressed, depleted, terrified. I questioned every day whether or not all of this battle was worth it. I questioned every day whether or not my happiness, my fulfillment was worth all of this fight and all of this emotion and upset and all of this fear. And, there were many times when I wanted to give up. One of the rules of the mind is that the mind likes what's familiar and does not like what is unfamiliar. So our minds don't say, that it doesn't take into consideration whether or not something serves you or is good for you. It just likes what's familiar. So it moves you towards what's familiar. And in those moments where I wanted to give up, that was my mind just trying to go back to what I knew. So thankfully, I resisted that, and I didn't go back to what I knew, but the pull was definitely there. I knew what I did know was the basics. I had to calm my body. I had to calm my mind. So I really started with just very basic self-care. I started with moments of breathing, doing breathing exercises to calm that shaking that was happening from my core. And then I did things like I took baths, I read books, very basic self-care. And in these moments of relaxation, I had this mantra drop into my mind. I know now that it came from my guides, my own personal guides, but the mantra, it was faith over fear. Very simple words, faith over fear. And I started repeating this mantra in my head um, over and over. Every time I felt overwhelmed and scared, which was 99% of the time, I would say this mantra, faith over fear, faith over fear, faith over fear. I'd say it with my eyes open. I'd say it with my eyes closed. I'd say it in a prayerful way. I'd say it most often in a desperate, begging way because I so badly wanted to achieve that, and I just kept saying that over and over again. The mind learns by repetition. That's another rule of the mind. It learns by repetition. So I just kept repeating it. Now I was on autopilot. I was moving through my day, going through the motions, and I was just doing this battle in so many ways. And one day I ran into a friend of mine by the name of Abby. Now she was concerned about me. I must have looked like a hot mess, and uh, she said that she recommended a massage. That I get a massage, and she must have seen all the tension and everything I was holding in my body, carrying in my body. And thankfully, Abby wrote down the name of a massage therapist and the number, and she handed it to me. This was very helpful because I was so disorganized at the time. Saying you should get a massage, I would have said, "Oh yeah, I need a massage, I really do, but I can't figure out how to find a massage therapist. I don't know how to Google. I don't know how to do any of that," and I wouldn't have done it. But she handed me a piece of paper with the name and number and told me to schedule. So I did. I scheduled this massage, and you know what I found. I went to that first appointment, and I found that this massage therapist was so much more than a massage therapist, which massage therapists are great, but she was also a medium. She was also a medium, and she utilized all these different um, healing modalities, guided people in spiritual growth. I had no idea. And as she was giving me this massage, she just gently asked me if I was interested in hearing any of the messages that were coming forward for me, that there were many. And she asked if I was interested. And I was desperate for any kind of help and guidance. So I said, yes, absolutely. I didn't know what she was going to share with me, but I did know that I was in dire need of help and guidance. Now, this was a life-changing moment for me. It was absolutely life-changing because this marked the beginning of me putting meaning and purpose to my experience. This was the beginning of me putting order back into my life through the guidance that she was providing to me. I had been living in chaos, and chaos is a scary place to live. It's terrifying, and this really helped me to actually start having more faith than fear, not just saying it and begging for it, but actually having it. So this was life-changing for me. This beautiful woman, her name was Mary Gertson, she offered me that guidance, and through this guidance, it helped to reassure me, and it helped me to know that I was moving in the right direction, and it helped me to keep going. So now what I know now is this guidance that she was offering to me, I didn't know it was available to me at the time, but now I know that it was there all the time. This guidance was always there, this guidance from spirit. Our souls they're just waiting for us to seek them out, and they're seeking us out. They're right there available to us, and I was so thankful to have this guidance. So with Mary, we did spiritual clearings. She uses scented oils and crystals and all sorts of different modalities that I didn't even understand, but I was absolutely on board for. And she guided this healing. She drew my attention to this darkness that had just engulfed me. And she really started peeling away those layers of darkness. And she showed me that underneath those layers of darkness were the colors of transformation, the colors of deep royal blue and purple, and it was so comforting to me. And it reminded me, yes, I am doing what I need to do. There's a purpose for this. Keep going. Every time I went to her, I received validation and confirmation that I was moving in the right direction, and that everything, happens for a reason. And these are life lessons that I came here to learn. So one of the most helpful things that Mary told me to do, she told me to write down what I wanted my life to look like. And she told me when I'm writing that, I was to leave all compassion for all others aside, to not take into consideration at all what it was going to do to other people, but just write about what I wanted my life to look like. That was super hard for me because I had never even began to think something like that. I always put compassion for others before my own. But she told me to do this writing exercise, and I did. And it was really the beginning of my empowerment, taking back my life. So I trusted Mary completely. I used these sessions. I just hungered for these sessions. And they served to build my courage, keep me moving forward. They gave me confirmation, validation that was so critical to my process. And, she'd be the first to say that she did nothing. It was all, she was a vessel that Spirit was speaking through, and it was all coming from Spirit. So, I also was able to connect with my sister who had passed away, and to really have that knowing that she was with me right there by my side, supporting me. And that helped me to feel less alone, and it helped me with my grief. So I also began journaling during this time, journaling my thoughts, feelings, my experience. And, journaling, it gives you access to your inner wisdom. It provides you a safe place to express yourself. And I began to write letters to myself, and I told myself, to come out of hiding. That I wrote about how I had been, just existing within the expectations of others, and that I really needed to just set all that aside and be myself now. It was time to be myself. And I made promises to myself about what I'd tolerate and what I would not tolerate. I listed the things that I would accept and not accept, and this was very important as well. One of the most important things that I had to accept was that not everyone was going to support me in what I was doing. When you're in making these big life changes and taking back your power, there's all sorts of people out there. I felt like herders were coming out of the woodwork, passing judgment, saying that I was selfish, doing things that I shouldn't do, all these kind of things. There was a wealth of herders out there. And I had to learn that I had to accept that not all people were going to support me the way I needed. And that was okay. I would let them go. Very important in my process. So I also wrote letters to my inner child. That scared inner child, I wrote in terms of I choose. I was taking back my choice-making capacity. I choose this. I choose that. All of these things, so empowering. So it was like my lights were on dim, and now my lights were on bright, and I was moving forward in this soul consciousness development and this soul growth. And I didn't even know what soul growth really was. And all of a sudden I was doing it. And it was amazing, but it was also extremely painful and terrifying because it was all within the context of all this life circumstance, still within the mud and muck of my intimate relationship, my workplace, my grief. So, I was even breaking out in rashes and things like that. And Mary helped me understand that that was emotion coming out of me. That was humiliation. That was shame coming out of my body. And, I began this process of entertaining the thought of forgiving myself. That was a hard thing because, as I said, I could offer compassion to other people, but I was not very good at offering compassion to myself. And I really had to start entertaining the thought of forgiving myself for all of this. So I did this, well, I guess I'll say the hardest thing to forgive myself for was compromising my integrity, because when I compromised my integrity, that brought about shame. And shame is the hardest emotion to reconcile with, the hardest feeling to reconcile with. I'm actually still working on that, but I've come a long ways. So I want to mention also that another way of guided healing came into my life during all of this too, unexpectedly. I didn't know anything about it. And that was hand reading. So I was introduced to a beautiful woman named Shirley Mitchell, who is going to be a guest on our show. Super excited to have her on. She does hand reading and a wealth of other things. She is a miracle worker, and she does all of this soul consciousness work. She's amazing. I can't wait to have her on here. But in the midst of this, I did hand reading, and it was another way of validating my experience, of telling me I'm going in the right direction. So I learned that within my handprint lied all of this explanation for my life purpose and what was happening. So specifically, I learned that I had come to this lifetime to learn qualities of love and closeness, that I would be challenged around intimacy and trust, and that I would struggle with an underlying fear of abandonment. It was all in the lines of my hand. Oh my gosh, remember the codependency I talked about? Absolutely, it all fit. And connecting the dots, putting the pieces together. In my hand, it also showed that this push-pull where I felt like I had so much to do, and yet needed to be hidden, remain hidden. All of this was right there in my handprint, and it helped me to maintain, or encouraged me to continue this journey, and empowered me. So, it also said that I needed to take my stage and my creative capacity and speak to the masses, and I hadn't worked on my fear of public speaking yet. So that was a bit scary for me, but it was all in my hand. All of this was there, and it was very reassuring. So this was like the beginning of my healing. This is where I started. These are the development of soul consciousness, and journaling and all of that. So I will continue to talk about other things that I did in my next segment to continue this talk about healing. Please stay with me. We're going to take a brief commercial break. You're watching Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on the Bold, Brave Television Network. Join me after the break. Thank you.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I am your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold, Brave Television Network. Thanks for joining me. In my last segment, I talked about the beginnings of my healing, that really I did meaningful work with people, incredible guides in healing and spiritual growth. I talked about Mary Gerson, who is a medium, and Shira Lee Mitchell, who did hand readings and does so much more. And this was really the beginning of my soul consciousness, and becoming aware of myself as a soulful person. It was a very empowering thing. It reassured me on that everything that I was doing was meant to be, and that I was going in the right direction. And it really helped me to stay focused and move forward. So I also shared that I that I journaled my thoughts and experience and feelings. And there were very important things that I did in that manner to work on my conscious mind. So, I was beginning to understand this soul development. I was beginning to understand the um, the power of the subconscious mind. I was beginning to understand meditation and all of these the benefits of deep relaxation and going inward. To um, I was beginning to recognize the importance of all of this, and I was putting great effort into following my intuition and noticing what I was compelled towards, beginning to notice like what I was drawn to. And this drew me to many amazing books. One of them being the book Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser. Oh my gosh, I loved this book, and it was so meaningful to me. It really helped me to reframe things in my mind. Remember how I said I was broken in my first show? I described myself as broken, and I defined broken as being fractured, damaged, no longer in working order. Well, in reading this book, Broken Open, I came to understand that rather than being broken, I had been broken open. And this was very helpful. This reframe was very helpful for me. I'll read a quote from the Omega Institute, which I believe Elizabeth Lesser is a founder of. But this quote goes, "We will be broken open and transformed, not broken down and defeated. We will break open and blossom into who we are meant to be." I grasped onto this quote and I said, yes, this is what's happening to me. And it made it less frightening. It made it, again, make sense. So, again, having my awareness brought to work that can be done in the subconscious mind, I found myself compelled towards, drawn to the art of hypnotherapy. And now this was me breaking out of the mold, stepping out of the box. I had been a mental health therapist, working in accepted medical models and whatnot. I knew all along that that wasn't a good fit for me, but I wasn't okay with just being myself. So this was me stepping out of that box and kind of going into uh, myself. So I was drawn to the art of hypnotherapy. This was around the time of COVID, where we were moving into lockdown. All of a sudden, there were trainings that were available online that previously weren't. And I could afford those trainings now because I didn't have to pay for travel and motels and everything. So things were offered online, and I had time because we were in lockdown. So I was drawn to a hypnotherapy training that was offered by a great hypnotherapist named Mark Johnson, who is also going to be on my show. And I took his training, which was incredible. So, in the course of this training, I really found myself blossoming. This was a bit on the, like, in the area of woo wooey. I like to call it woo wooey, and I actually am I'm like 99.9% woo wooey. And this was me letting it out. I remember Mary Gertson telling me at one point that I was going to come to a place where, and I quote, I would let my freak flag fly. And this was kind of the beginning of these kind of things. And she just meant I was going to embrace who I am, my true soulful self. So I embarked on this hypnotherapy training. Now, do you remember in my first show, I talked about my childhood, and I spoke of it in terms of being trauma-free and stable. I had great parents, a kind, loving, safe home. But yet I was full of fear and anxiety. Well, in doing this hypnotherapy, I came to realize that I actually did have trauma in my childhood, significant trauma. And I didn't realize that until the day came when I had to be the person being hypnotized by Mark, as we all had to take turns in demonstrating hypnotherapy, with Mark demonstrating hypnotherapy on students. Now, I was not looking forward to this because I was still not wanting to be seen. I was still wanting to remain hidden, but I knew I had to. I didn't have a choice. So I couldn't step out into the hallway during this and make a fake phone call or anything. I had to do it. So my day came, And on that day, Mark asked me what issue I'd like to work on. My feelings were still really raw about my struggles in personal relationship. I wanted to stay away from that. So I said, I chose something I thought was safe. And I said, I want to work on my fear of public speaking. So we did. And Mark did a hypnotherapy session on me where he regressed me back to the very origins, the very originating, precipitating event that put this emotion into action, that pushed this issue into motion. Now, I thought, like in my conscious mind, I thought I knew where I was going to go to because I had some tough childhood experiences. I mean, remember in the first grade when I said I hid under my desk the entire year? Well, also in the first grade, I was playing with my friend Dana, and I tripped and I fell, and I cut my whole head open all the way across my forehead. And then a couple days later, it was class picture day. I literally have a first grade class picture where I'm so small. I'm trying to be so tiny, and my little friend Maureen is holding my hand. And I have a giant bandage wrapped around my head like I just returned from war. I mean, that could cause a person to want to be hidden, So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to that. Well, in hypnotherapy, I went all the way back to being 1 year old in a hospital room. And I saw this memory as clear as day where it was getting to the end of visitation hours for the evening. Back then, the hospitals didn't let parents stay with their children in the hospital. So I was getting dysregulated. I was clinging to my mom. I was crying. I was so upset. And Mark asked me, my mom was also trying to regulate. She was trying to be strong because she knew she had to leave. So Mark asked me in this moment what I was needing. And I said, I need my mom. I need to leave with my mom. I don't want her to leave. I'm terrified. I don't want to be in this place without her. And he also asked me, like, what was I thinking? What were my beliefs? And I said the magic words at that time. I said, I need to be invisible. I need to be unnoticed. I need to be hidden so I can sneak past these nurses and go home with my mom. I can't be seen. And therein lied the answer to why I was driven by fear and anxiety about being noticed and about being seen. And in that moment, Mark, who's a brilliant hypnotherapist, went in and he helped me to heal that emotion so that I could leave it behind and not be driven by it anymore. And we did that healing. As adult Tracy, I went to 1-year-old Tracy. I provided her with everything 1-year-old Tracy was needing in that moment. And then he had me take 1-year-old Tracy and removed me from that scene and integrated 1-year-old Tracy into adult Tracy now. And that moment was life-changing for me. It really did change my life as far as my fear of public speaking, being out in front of people, all of that. And, all of this is why I can be here with you all today doing this show. So it was super interesting and life-changing. I became licensed or I became certified, as a hypnotherapist. And then I even took it a step further. Mark encouraged me to also get certified in past life regression. Now I was like, whoa, that is super woo-woo-y, right? But it's so interesting. And I did become certified in that as well. And I love doing all of this now. So I thank Mark for his encouragement in encouraging me to do that. So now there's one more thing that I want to talk about before we get to our next commercial break. And, I mentioned that I was breaking out in rashes from emotion around this time. Well, another thing happened to my body while I was within this toxic stress environment. So I had an external toxic stress environment, which created an internal toxic stress environment within my body. So, all emotion that's held in it will come out. It will weep out for sure. And, I found myself one day feeling very sick. I was just so sick. And what did I do? I went to my mom, of course. I was like, Mom, I'm feeling so sick. I can't get enough water. My vision is all messed up. It's just horrible. I don't know what's happening. And my mom, she said, oh my God, you have diabetes. I was like, Mom, no, I don't have diabetes. I'm not even pre-diabetic. I just got checked like 4 months ago. Well, the very next day, guess who ended up in the ER with a blood sugar of 560? Me. Yeah, so I had diabetes, and not just type 2 diabetes, which is a challenge in itself for sure, but I had type 1 diabetes. My doctor said that it was impossible to go from non-pre-diabetic to type 1, and I was still working on myself, and I just told her, you know what? I have always tried to just do everything in the perfect manner. I'm a chronic overachiever. If anybody could go from pre-diabetic to type 1, it would be me. So, kind of poking fun at myself, but this is a very serious thing. I had created such a toxic stress environment internally that my pancreas was like, I'm out. I do not want to exist within this anymore. So now, my body had shut down in that area, and I didn't produce insulin anymore. Now, please don't take this as me saying that people with diabetes bring this on themselves, bring this disease on themselves. That is not what I'm saying at all. But I am speaking as far as my own personal experience and journey. And I do have a belief that that the disease of diabetes, it did exist within my DNA. I was predispositioned towards it. But I also believe that the toxic stress environment that I created internally for myself, the extended, prolonged toxic stress environment, I do believe that it activated that disease and it brought it out of my DNA. So now I do want to say thank you to modern medicine. I have an insulin pump now, and I have insulin that I have to get at the pharmacy. So I absolutely appreciate modern medicine for keeping me alive. But this was another layer, and pure evidence that the body does keep the score. So I started doing Reiki as well with a brilliant Reiki healer named Katie Howard, and she is going to be on our show. She's my very first guest, and I can't wait for that to happen. So now I am going to take another brief commercial break. You're watching Talks with Tracy. Thank you for watching. Coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Please do a little self-care out there. I'll do the same, and I'll meet you right back here in a couple of minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you for joining me for this final segment. I've been talking about my healing journey today, how I achieved the healing and came to be here with you today. Now, I'm still doing my healing. I am a long ways from being finished. I believe I'll be doing it my whole lifetime. But thanks for listening to my journey. Now, before my healing, I didn't know what I know now. I know now that all things happen for a reason. Now, I don't know why I didn't know that, because I literally grew up with a mother who told me that all the time. She always told me everything has meaning and purpose and intention. We don't always know what it is, but we can trust that it is. We can trust in our higher powers, that our higher powers, the universe, our creator, God, whomever your higher power is, that they know what the purpose is. She literally told me that my whole life. And now I was seeing, wow, she was right. I know that we're all on our own journeys, going down our own pathways. So, I've learned from the brilliant guidance that I've mentioned here today. So many beautiful people helping me, guiding me in my healing, my spiritual growth. I've also learned from so many great minds out there. Oh my gosh, like Carolyn Mace and Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is my current obsession right now. Elizabeth Lesser was instrumental. Hypnotherapists like Marissa Peer and people like Michael Newton, soul consciousness people like Robert Schwartz. Oh my gosh, there's just so many people out there. And also I would sit and watch during this time. I'd sit and watch Super Soul Sunday religiously. And anybody who knows me and close to me knows that I am a huge fan of Oprah. And she literally helped me develop my soul consciousness with her inspirational shows, and I would just watch them religiously. So actually, Oprah, if you're watching, I can't wait to sit in your garden in Maui and visit with you. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that day. So now, just to be clear, that's not me being delusional. That is actually me actively manifesting Oprah. Anyway, so I get really excited about these people. But, so another thing I try to do, I try to move through my day with gratitude. Just the other day, it was a really cold Montana morning. I was driving my kids to school, and my teenage daughter, she was complaining about our crappy heater in our car. And I was like, I am just so thankful to have a heater at all. Now, do my kids appreciate my positivity and gratitude? Well, not all the time, especially my teenager when we're on our way to school and it's morning. But I do hope that they'll learn to live within that, and it'll be an automatic thought someday for them. And they'll shift from, upset to gratitude automatically, because that in itself is healing. So I continue to work with incredible people. I continue to evolve. I work with an amazing psychic named Lisa Adams. She's going to be on our show too. I can't wait to have her. Working with her, it just helps me in an ongoing manner to make sense of my life. And she helps me figure out like what the meaning and purpose behind things is. Putting more pieces of the puzzle together. And, I also work with an amazing energy healer. Oh my gosh, she does so many different healing modalities. Her name's Catherine Marcaras, and I just love her. And she's helping me figure out what my own creativity is and connect with my guides, so I can, I can call on them for direction. And she's going to be on the show too. I am so excited to have all these incredible people on my show. So, I think maybe this is the beginning of me taking my stage. Remember that in my handprint? Yeah, I think I'm maybe doing it, speaking to the masses. Couldn't do it without all this healing, that's for sure, here on Bold Brave Television Network. So now, what do I look like in relationship? I can assure you that I look strong and confident in relationship. I have put codependency behind me, and I focus on interdependency, a partnership, an equal relationship. I no longer attach my happiness to the happiness of others. I am married to a beautiful man. Is our marriage perfect? No, it's not. Does it have challenges? Absolutely. But I demand respect and kindness and genuine love and affection and equal partnership. And when there's rupture, I expect meaningful repair. I use my voice. I stand up for myself in intimate relationship, and I love myself. And that makes it so I can deeply love him while still standing in my power. That's so important. So this is my healing journey. I want to leave you today with a quote that was really meaningful. I wrote it in the inside page of my Broken Open book, so I think it's from the book, but I wasn't in a place where I was, saying where it came from. But I want to leave you with this quote. Go alone into the flames, burn away the illusions, and rise from the ashes with the prize of one's true self. Beautiful words to live by. So thank you for watching today. I will be back with you in 2 weeks. Next week is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. 2 weeks from now, I will be having my first guest, Katie Howard, and she'll be the very first guest getting naked on Talks with Tracy with me. I can't wait. So please join me for that. This has been Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold, Brave Television Network. Thanks for watching.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.